It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Breaking news from about 15 minutes ago. Country singer Toby Keith died last night, surrounded by his family. He was diagnosed with stomach cancer about 18 months ago, has been fighting it since. If you've seen any interviews or out in public, you can tell that he had gotten significantly thinner over that period. But just such a sad note to start today's day. Today's day. His song's memorable, huh?
Yeah,
after 9/11.
There's so many moments in his career. I loved the song "Should Have Been a Cowboy." I mean, it's just, first of all, his vocal range, just as a singer, forget about the genre. I love country music, but in any genre, his vocal range, his voice was just so good. As a songwriter, he talked about when he changed labels, getting more liberty to basically do the songs that he wanted to do. And of course, as an artist, that's what you want. You really want to. It is about that expression. You're trying to really, get your work out there. But also, then moving into the restaurant industry. The song "I Love This Bar" was the inspiration for Toby Keith's "I Love This Bar and Grill." And I don't know how many locations are left. I do know one in Oklahoma, and that's at one of the large casinos. It's inside. And I've seen it before. I've never been in, but it's what you would expect. It's a bar and grill location, kind of a fun thing. Had friends outside the genre. He was good friends with rock singer Sammy Hagar. Sammy Hagar featured him on his Access TV show. I featured Toby, and Toby got to show him around Oklahoma a little bit, and that's kind of the spirit that Toby Keith had. He was fun to watch. He was fun to listen to, and also could get very serious. You look at the song "Don't Let the Old Man In." He had befriended Clint Eastwood, the actor, and he asked Clint Eastwood, here's this iconic actor, and he said, "I wanted to, hey, what's your secret? I mean, you're active, and you just seem to be timeless here. What's your secret as you age?" And he says, Clint Eastwood responded, "Don't let the old man in, don't sit down, basically don't retire. You and I have talked about this, stay active, that kind of thing." But that thought stuck in his head. And Toby Keith said, "Wow, don't let the old man in. I got to write that song." He wrote that song and sent it to Clint Eastwood, and Clint Eastwood decided to use it in the movie The Mule. In fact, it's at the end of the movie. Well, that recent performance on that awards show of that song just had so much emotional connection to what Toby was going through in that moment. And he spoke about that in a recent interview with the television station there in Oklahoma about, how that, connection. They didn't play it. Radio didn't really play that song when the movie came out. But a few years later, of course, that emotional connection when he performed it live, brought it back to radio. And that's a very interesting take on it. And just he's one of these country music artists whose songs are going to be, and he kind of went through that. If you go back to the early Toby Keith, I mean, he was kind of maturing. You could see it as an artist, but a constant, a mainstay in country music, from the moment he hit. And his music will most certainly live on.
And if you weren't into country music, you had to know him if you watched any TV because he was the spokesperson and did the Wounded Warrior PSAs that have run for years.
Right. Yep.
And so probably a lot of people recognize him, from that.
Yeah.
I'll see it on. If I turn on TV for a couple of hours, you can almost guarantee it will be on.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
The Wounded Warrior public service announcement.
Right.
But he was, really did attach himself to the military and patriotism. And he went back and forth the last 20 years being a Democrat and a Republican or independent.
Yeah.
But
right,
voting
sure.
for Republicans at the same time. Remember that whole thing that happened?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, sure.
Oh, you're just a shill for the Republican Party. He goes, I'm a Democrat.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
He's a Democrat that was always questioning what the Democrats were doing. Then I think like in 2014 or 2015, he officially became an independent.
Yeah.
So
right.
But it's sad. I mean, he's he just seemed like the kind of person you'd like if you met him.
No, that's I think that is a
genuine.
huge part of the appeal, and it might seem an odd comparison, but it isn't to me. But Dave Grohl comes to mind in two ways. The kind of person that's approachable, that you could talk to, you'd love to have a conversation with, that seems, like they have both feet on the ground. And then also on stage is having as much fun and enjoyment as the fans are that are in the audience at that moment. And that's exactly the way that Toby Keith was. I mean, he was having so much, he got so much great enjoyment. That passion for performing was always present. And, we could see it in that recent performance. The TV interview that was in over the last couple of weeks from the TV station there in near Oklahoma City. He had lost even more weight since that performance. And yet his spirits in that interview were great. The reporter said she showed up to do, an interview, and they ended up talking for well over 2 hours. And he was just showing her around, and they were just talking about so many things, and you could tell his energy was really great. His heart was constant. And, it's, again, that's an admirable mindset and spirit when you can look at the person and know that they're going through so much. And stomach cancer is especially harsh. I've had friends and family members who have passed from it, and the treatment is harsh.
Yeah, my grandmother did.
And it's just, it's one of those things that, as you watch it and you know these people, and if they're friends or family members, and you feel so helpless. And I think a lot of the fans for Toby Keith shared that too, that thought.
And something, I mean, it's just heartbreaking because we've all seen people, families, friends, whatever, that have had cancer, and even the treatments and the cancer beats them down and they become thinner and all that, and it's just such a sad thing to see. I mean, even if you're not the person who's suffering from it, friends and relatives. And I was thinking, when Jay Leno announced the conservatorship for his wife, Mavis. Did you see where? I mean, he had to respond to it because people were like, "Why is he doing that to his wife? He's got all the money he wants." He had to explain, "I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing it for her.
Yeah.
If I die, she needs to be taken care of. We're setting this up for her."
Right.
And nothing to do with me. He said, "I've been the wage earner of the family. I'm not trying to, because." It was almost as if, what nefarious purposes is Jay Leno involved in now?
Like he was trying to take her money or something.
Exactly
just,
right.
People, it's people's ignorance of that process. Many of us adult caretakers have been there, and I've been through. And in fact, I've been through that with a handful of family members.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, we're going through that officially with one family member this week, this Thursday. And it's part of a process to make sure that that person is going to be taken care of, and that, um, it's and it's really sad knowing that Jay has been they have been a constant, no children. They have been a constant couple for decades, and now he is in part a caretaker, of course. And this is part of that, the official side of the caretaking.
He was out with her apparently on either was this past Sunday or the Sunday before, at his regular comedy gig.
Yeah.
And she, and she was with him. So
Yeah.
he did that back in November, but that just, that hit, my heartstrings just because.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
If you've had anybody that in your family that had dementia, my mom did. And, you just, you see that. And I forgot. I know who it was. I know what it reminded me of. It was Demi Moore talking about her ex, Bruce Willis.
Yeah.
And apparently they're, she's around a lot, even being the ex. They've been very close. I think share 3 daughters. But it's, the whole, and that it just comes, it came back to me, and I think it goes back to everybody. And she said, you have to live every moment in the present. And I went, wow, that's great advice, because if you think about what that person was compared to what they are right now, and you see how they're not the same person that they were. I always think about the first time that I called my mom and she hung up on me, and realizing it was not angry about it. I mean, I'm like I said, not angry at my mom, but when she first got dementia, normally she would, how you doing? She would talk, and she was like, oh, how are you? Let me see if your father's around. He's not around. Bye. Boom. Hang up. It's like, whoa. And that's a moment in your life you'll never forget. And you just say things are changing, and you realize you go through that process. She said, just embrace the present and the beauty of what you can get from that person at the present. And that's really, really true. I know it was for me with my mom.
Well, we're going through it with a couple of family members, and one family member looking at photos on the wall that have been there for a long, long time, and then saying, those people aren't my family. And that's one of the moments that is, the step backwards. But then the living in the moment part of it is then going out with them to go to a restaurant or just hang out or take a ride in the car, do something enjoyable, and know that there still are moments. At least our experience has been with our family members that are going through it, where they are in the moment. My mom's oldest sister, before she passed, her dementia went from nothing to advanced, and then her passing within 7 months. It was a very short time period. But the last time that I saw her before she passed was actually at her younger brother's funeral. My mom's twin brother had passed, and we're sitting there at the wake, and I'm sitting across from her, and one of my mom's other sisters, my Aunt LaVon, was talking to her about, well, this is Eric, and he is, Mary's and Jimmy's son, and she goes, well, of course he's Jimmy's son. Look at him, and she looks at me, and then points at my dad, who was at another table. We were at the wake, and so she points at another table where my dad was sitting, and it was one of those moments of recognition when she at that point was at very advanced at dementia. And had that smile that was everlasting.
And it was a great moment.
Yeah.
In fact, I just last weekend I sent my sister some pictures, that came up in Facebook history, me being with my mom, and she said, that's one of the last times. And I went, it was the second last time. I said, I saw my mom. I said, but that was the last time she was fully coherent.
Yeah.
And that's when she played a trick on me.
Right.
And she was fully coherent at that point. Now, we were blessed in a way that my mom, because a lot of people with dementia don't know who anybody is and absolutely are frightened to death.
Yes. Yeah.
My mom never got to that point, even though she did forget my dad a few times. Who are you? But she never forgot me. And and she never was scared, and that's what I'm thinking about, when the whole Jay Leno thing, and even with Bruce Willis, you're like, and again, you think about that because they're people that are celebrities and you know who they are and all that, but it's just to me, just more examples of what millions of other families have gone through.
There's a
with
movie
people in
from
their family with dementia.
There's a movie from several years ago that I think is worth watching. It can be hard to watch, but I think they did a very good job at demonstrating as best they could, anyway, with a drama, what someone with dementia is going through, and it's called The Father, and it has Anthony Hopkins in it. But the way that it is, where people are leaving the room and coming back and recognizing someone, and then someone else walks in, and the viewer is actually going through what the main subject is going through, what the main character is going through, because you're thinking, well, who is that person? Now somebody else has walked into the room. It can be hard to watch, especially for those of us who deal with it directly. But it is, I think, a very good movie. I think it was well done, But as we go through life, and and people age and get sick, we were all praying for Toby Keith, and I know that was greatly appreciated, losing his battle with stomach cancer yesterday at the age of 62. Rest in peace.
866-90 Red Eye.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by House Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
Various ag and rural-oriented organizations, private businesses, and nonprofit groups continue to expand available rural mental health resources to communities and individuals. For instance, the recent announcement of the Farm Family Wellness Alliance and
free access to counseling for farmers and ranchers and those in rural America.
Terry Moore represents the American Farm Bureau Federation, one of several partners within the alliance. Their new platform, found at www.farmfoundation.org/resources, provides anonymous online mental health and well-being services, and as important, points to local resources in rural communities. She acknowledges
one of the challenges in the mental health arena is that often we have national hotlines, but those counselors may not understand rural America. Life is very different in rural America, and so the psychology of helping someone in crisis in rural America is different, and that too is part of what we have been working to achieve.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I just, some stories I just go, oh, come on, please. This one I saw yesterday. New survey out. Football surpasses baseball as America's national pastime. Pew Research Center found Americans believe football, not baseball, is America's sport, and the margin is very wide.
Yeah. Yeah.
The 63% of Americans believe football is America's sport. Baseball came in at 27%, basketball 8%, soccer 3%, racing 3%, hockey 1%, something else 2%.
Yeah.
But we already knew that.
Yeah, right.
We already.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much been the case for a while. Yeah,
and
right.
Thank you, Pew Research and Fox News for having that story. 40 years after that became true. 40 to 50 years after that became true.
(866-90 Red Eye). Now's your chance to be the caller. Red Eye Radio.
Red Eye Radio, he's Eric Hurley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen when and where you want. If you can't listen live overnight to one of our great radio station affiliates. Just to very quickly, thanks for the update there from Pew Research that did the polling. And football is now considered America's sport. I mean, it has been for a while. I say since the 70s because I think that's when the numbers really changed as you got a couple years into the Super Bowl.
Yeah, right.
And that's really when it surpassed, and probably it surpassed baseball in the early to mid, in the 60s somewhere is where the evolution took place. But when you see, and how do you know it today? You know it by the TV numbers. Super Bowl on Sunday will probably draw, I'm going to guess, 120 million average.
Yeah.
150 peak.
Yeah.
Highest World Series game last year was the lowest World Series ever viewed since they've been doing the Nielsen rating since 1963. So that's as far as they really go back. But
it's golf, though. Come on, you're supposed to work.
I don't
say it's. No, it's baseball.
Oh no, it's baseball. Yeah, I thought there was something else coming in there. Normally we have this chemistry that I automatically relate to something.
No, you stopped him. You were like,
as soon as I pause, it's like
what's you doing?
He didn't get what direction I was going in somehow. But golf even has probably lower numbers than that. I'm not, especially the last couple of years after Live. I would assume that
was the inspiration for the joke about baseball. It's getting down to golf, even NASCAR numbers. Sorry, NASCAR fans, but it's true.
So it's like the top game was 11 million.
Yeah.
For the final game of the World Series, they averaged game 3, I think, was 8 million. So, pretty low numbers. But if you look at hockey, I mean, hockey probably pulls in 300,000-400,000.
Have we ever seen a number on how much? I don't do sports betting. Now, I've been to casinos, and I will play a little bit at a casino. I don't play like John Daly. Let's put it that way. Man, what's his name? Ron White had a story. He's good friends with John Daly. He says, "Man, that guy gambles." But how much money? How much total money on just the Super Bowl? Total wagers.
And now that so much of it is legal.
Oh, yeah. No, that's a good point.
Will total betting be, right? Total betting for
$23.1 billion.
Well, I was going to say this. Not only is football big and football and gambling is big, it's much bigger than Taylor Swift.
This is this is just from yesterday. I didn't see the story yesterday. Where was this from? ABC News.
Okay, I got it.
Super Bowl should smash betting records with 68 million U.S. adults set to wager legally or otherwise. Well, the otherwise. Bettors plan to wager an estimated $23.1 billion on this super. By the way, half of that is John Daly. On this year's Super Bowl, up from 16 billion last year. Oh, inflation, but up from 16 billion. This group predicted. The American Gaming Association. Well, they're not just any group. Of that, about 1.5 billion is projected to be bet with legal. Wait.
So 1.5 billion
of that
is legal, and the rest is illegal.
I thought I was going to read because I'm reading this fresh. I mean, it's on the fly.
I know
this is hot off the presses, ladies and gentlemen. It's actually from yesterday, but it's the first time I've read it, and that's the point. Of that, about $1.5 billion is projected to be bet with legal outlets. That means Oh my gosh, $21.5 billion is going to be illegal betting?
Now, do they count that the squares too? Are they taking that into consideration?
Are you saying the squares is illegal? Because I just
Well,
I gave Alan, our producer,
well, yeah.
$400.
When I lived in New York one time, there was like a prow. You better watch out with the bars and the squares because technically, if you have it out, it's gambling in a place that serves alcohol without a license or whatever it was. I think it was. This goes back years ago. I can't even tell you what year it was.
Yeah.
I just remember that being an issue. It's like, what are you talking about? It's a stinking square board.
I only encountered that a couple of times along the way in offices. And since it was radio, we were betting with pennies. But I've never encountered it, outside of that. I'm sure there are, plenty of buddies or groups out there with it. But
now with the 83,000 more IRS agents, are they going after the squares?
Probably.
If you win, you better report.
So, hold on. Is that what? $1.5 billion?
Yeah.
Is projected to be bet with legal outlets.
Yeah,
which means
I'm reading it right here.
$21.5 billion, roughly $21.6 billion, I guess, if you do the math. $23.1 billion minus $1.5 billion. $21.6 billion will be other than legal.
well, look at this. Is this? Would you say because they say sports betting is legal in 38 states plus Washington, D.C. So they're talking about in 39 places in the majority of the country, sports betting is legal.
Mm-hmm.
And it went up from 16 to 20, but legal is only 1.5 billion. Is this the same as legalizing marijuana? That you can get.
Everybody else is doing it because they think it should be legal in their area or something, you mean?
No, it's just that the black market for anything, if you legalize something, the black market also grows, even as the business overall grows.
That's a great point.
Because what you'll hear is, well, look at this. Well, the whole thing here locally with Mark Cuban selling the Dallas Mavericks, and it's all it seems to be based on the fact that we want to have when Texas goes to gambling. We want to be ready. What will we approve of first, pot or gambling?
I think it's gambling on pot. I think it's going to be all in one bill. It's going to be let her roll a joint.
But that whole thing is based on the fact of, okay, we're looking into the future when Texas has gambling. And I'm like, okay. But you look at the explosion in legalized gambling, and it's still minuscule compared to illegal gambling. And if you look at the growth rate, even from last year, from 16 to the vast majority of it, I thought, so many places, so many states have opened up legalized gambling. That's where you're seeing the increase. I was shocked at the numbers when you read them, and I was just getting into the story too.
Yeah.
When you had said the story's out there, and I found it on Google, but the reprint from the Seattle Times, and it's like, well, the vast majority as legalized gambling. I'm sure the governments are promoting it. Look how the tax dollars it's bringing it in, but at the same time, illegal gambling is skyrocketing, much like we've seen the pot industry in California and Colorado and other places that is having trouble legally, or making it the legal pot is having a problem making it because of the taxes and fees and everything else. I wonder if Biden plans on taking the junk fees off of pot. But you see also that the cartels in the amount is growing gangbusters.
Yeah. And what about this? So the sports gambling thing that you can do, even if it's legal in your area, but you can't do the kind of sports gambling that you want to do, right? Like fantasy football kind of gambling. I don't know what the laws say. I got to be honest with you. I'm totally ignorant on this. But let's just say that you're in an area where, okay, you can do it through the fantasy football league type things. You can have those types of accounts, but you don't have a bookie set up to take your bets and the odds and in any given game. So people are doing both, and basically they're inspired because this type of gambling is legal, and I'll just get with my buddies and we'll do whatever squares or whatever on that. Because look, I'm not that naive. I was going to say I'm not naive. I'm not that naive. I know that illegal gambling is massive. But it is interesting that with the expansion of gambling, especially sports gambling, that still only 1.5 billion out of the 23.6 billion, 23.1 billion is legal. You would think that number would, I mean, it is growing. It's up from 1.25 billion in legal bets.
Right, it's up, yeah.
But it's, I mean, you would think that the percentage would go way, way up. But actually, the biggest growth in this, so look at this. Overall betting last year at the Super Bowl was 16 billion, okay, total. Now it's 23.1 billion. Legal betting on the Super Bowl was 1.25 billion last year, and now it's 1.5 billion. That's not that much of an increase compared to the overall increase, which means there's a massive increase in non-legal betting on the Super Bowl. It's $7.1 billion.
It would be interesting to compare a state like Texas that really doesn't have, gambling isn't legal here yet, and compare just the per capita betting on the Super Bowl or the NFL in the state of Texas, compared to the overall betting. I mean, legal or illegal in a place where it would be legal, and you've got a couple of major league, football teams, New York or whatever. What is the comparison per capita?
The Chickasaw Nation owns WinStar Casino, and that is an hour north of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and 95% of the revenue comes from right here, the Dallas-Fort Worth area. There's the Choctaw Casino, and they're just inside Oklahoma, basically, when you go north into Oklahoma on 35 or Highway 75, depending on which one you're going to. So the overwhelming majority of the money comes out of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And I know you were talking about Texas as a whole, as the entire state, but I don't know, and I don't know the extent of sports gambling at those casinos. I got to be honest with you, I've never experienced that. I know they have the machines and some tables. I don't know the experience to what extent they have sports related gambling.
Probably would be,
but there are a lot of gamblers to be clear. There are a lot of legal gamblers.
It might be easier to measure, for example, the Dallas-Fort Worth area, even the outgo of money to see of gambling, and compare that to a city where where gambling is legal, and see what the total amount of gambling is per capita.
So no, let's see here. This is, I don't know if Oklahoma has been given full gaming rights, so they cannot operate a sports book at this time. That was according to one travel expert. I don't know if that is the case, but I know I've been to both of those casinos. I've never experienced, I don't remember seeing it like a sports bookie like I've seen in Vegas section where you walk up and it's all sports gambling.
Right.
I've never done it, but I've seen it in Vegas for sure.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Will be interesting, Eric, to see what happens now in the Senate as Republicans seem to be backing off on it. You have 3 Democrat senators that won't vote for it right now.
Right.
McConnell backing off on it. Langford seems to be backing off on it. In fact, he said he would not vote to move it forward tomorrow. So
well, and that's it. That's the cloture vote is tomorrow. So if it doesn't get through cloture, Lindsey Graham implying,
he said the same thing. Yep,
some kind of amendment. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. I don't know what that amendment would be. The amendment would be take that number 5,000, change it to zero. Take that word discretion, which appears 12 times in the bill, out of it. Make it appear. Also, take that down to zero.
Right.
And so, that's basically what it comes down to for a lot of us. Those things aren't going to happen because it's the back and forth. What are you going to give up to the Democrats to make all those changes? They're not going to accept anything, which is our whole concern with this. I think this thing might not get through cloture. Mm-hmm. I guess we'll see what they say today.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.